And then finally for today, we have Purva Ashadha.
Purva Ashadha. Purva Ashadha. I always like, and I always feel I'll be misunderstood when I say this, so I'm going to go into an explanation. I like using the analogy that Purva Ashadha is related to the causal nature of the soul. Now, what do I mean by that? So let's look at the concept of cause and effect, right? How does that happen? Well, obviously there has to be some initiative force doing something that's going to make an effect. But by the soul's true nature, the soul here incarnated, it has that naturally encoded inside of itself. I'm here on the planet. Through just being me, I'm going to have all these different experiences that are initiated from the core of who I am, because these are the experiences I need to have in order to become awakened or to realize myself. So I like using the concept that it's the soul in its natural causal state.
Okay.
But that natural causal state isn't it's not discovered easily, right? Because we live in a world of duality.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we encounter certain experiences, we think that we need to behave in a certain way, right? Let's look at a concept of money, right? So money is supposedly has at its basis something tangible. But if you look, there's worldwide debt, which only shows that really the basis of that money is not solid. Okay, so you take that analogy, and then you take these different jobs or pursuits that we undergo in order to attain that money. Well, sometimes people do things that really aren't, on a certain level, what their skills or what their gifts are. And they have to wear a certain face in order to do certain things, or behave in a certain manner in order to gain the money that they're trying to gain.
Right.
So what ends up happening through Purva Ashadha is the layers of the ego that are keeping one from behaving in one's true nature are slowly peeled away. And dependent upon the intensity of the mask that one has been wearing, that's going to mark the intensity of the process that one is going through.
Okay.
In relation to that. So I like using the analogy that Purva Ashadha is connected to getting to the root of the authentic self. Who am I at my core? Who am I and what am I? And sometimes, as we were talking earlier, sometimes that changes over the course of our life. Our beliefs or things that we feel that we must be true to change because we evolve and we grow.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes we still try to cling to that form, which is not helpful. Okay, Purva Ashadha is one of the things that it's symbolized by is a winnowing basket, which a lot of people may not know what that is, but it used to be used to gather grain. And the grain would be taken in the basket and shaken back and forth to separate the wheat from the chaff, to separate the undigestible portion of the wheat from the nutritious portion of the wheat, to separate the strength from what one didn't need, to separate the real or the authentic from the gross or the superficial. So it's about peeling away all those masks that we wear so that we're able to understand what lies beneath that. Interestingly enough, the primary motivation of this nakshatra is moksha. Pluto's in Purva Ashadha right now. And in Capricorn, looking at stories in the news, you'll see how, well, true nature of what's going on in particular governments is becoming more and more apparent, becoming clear. Things can't be hidden anymore. The superficial mask that has been on before doesn't really have a place to it doesn't work anymore, right?
Right.
Pluto would function very well here, because Pluto is all about, taking away the ego. Okay, so it's when we get to that space where we're able to understand to the best of our extent that we can our own true nature, what we're here for, what we're here to do, what we're here to accomplish, then we recognize that there needs to be less of doing things that are not what we should be doing. And then we begin to understand the law of attraction, that just by being naturally ourselves, we'll naturally attract to ourselves those things that we need to prosper. And that's the true meaning of prosperity, that which is beneficial for the spirit, right? And we only get to that through understanding our spirit, or through understanding our soul and who we are.
Right.
The deity that's connected with Purva Ashadha is Apas, which is the goddess of waters. And what does water do? Well, water does a lot of different things. It cleanses away impurities. It gets rid of the dirt. Okay? If you look at the ocean stretches on forever. So if we look at the symbolism of an ocean or water on that level, well, we're able to see the infinite nature of the soul, and how those waves kind of encroach upon the shores, just as the nature of our true self will encroach upon our everyday reality, to help us to gain a clearer and clearer perspective of that. But water also sustains. And through that sustenance, new forms are able to be created. The sage Shankara used to equate water with sattva, with balance, right? Being able to see things clearly. And used to equate spirituality, obviously, with sattva. But when sattva is combined with rajasic energy and tamasic energy, which actually is what happens in Purva Ashadha, then we have a condition created for the rebirth of the soul, which we've been talking about, that concept of the causal nature of the soul. When the soul is reborn and comes here into being, that all those experiences that the individual is here to encounter or to go through are encoded in that individual. That's one of the things astrology shows us. So we can see all those natural tendencies, the ways that we're supposed to behave in order to have certain experiences, which are ultimately going to carry us towards doing the things that we need to do. Dependent upon how you look at it. I'm a strong believer that really, even though we have free will, that free will itself is happening under the will of the universe. So that free will couldn't exist without the will of the universe, because we are that, right? Which that could lead to a very long philosophical discussion. So, so we won't go too deeply into that. The basis above with Purva Ashadha is that of strength. What does strength come from? Well, through being connected to one's soul. The basis below is that connection, connecting to one's soul. From that comes the gain of luster. And Purva Ashadha is ruled by Venus, which is going to give a very charismatic sense of energy to Purva Ashadha, which, interestingly enough, it comes back to that concept of the power of attraction. I'm attracting to myself exactly what I need. Right? The Trimurti association is Vishnu. Preserving, sustaining, getting rid of all the impurities that that are obstructing one from realizing one's true nature. I once, just to kind of share in light of Purva Ashadha, this particular story, I once read, I wish I remembered the book that I read, but it was a really interesting point of view on what our experience of consciousness is. Which is, if you take a look at how we're able to actually see things with our eyes, we see things with our eyes because light is bouncing off of things. And so then we're able to experience them. Well, if you look at consciousness and on a similar level, we're encountering or experiencing consciousness because the purity of our existence is being reflected off of those things that we're encountering, and they're being reflected back to us so that we go through this experience that helps us to get back to that true nature, if that makes sense. Yeah. So that's very much what Purva Ashadha is about. It's about getting rid of all of those things that are keeping you from being yourself, getting to the root of who you truly are.
Right. And the whole idea is washing away the impurities that prevent that, and therefore we find the things which are going to sustain that, and hence we get the idea of the Shakti being the power of invigoration, and the result being the gain of luster.
Yes, thanks for mentioning that, because I missed those two. So Shakti is the power of invigoration, and the result being gain of luster. So we do have to go through that. And if you look at the concept of the winnowing basket, that's the invigoration. We're being kind of, I think the term is threshed about a little bit, so that what's real is awakened.
Right.
And from that awakening, that's where the gain of luster comes from. Yeah.
And so, along those lines too, if we think about, like a house lord being in this particular nakshatra, then it may be that whatever house lord is there, the indications of that house, it might show that that individual is going through a process of determining, cleansing out the things that are no longer, that aren't really supportive of that house, that area of life represented by that house, so that that person can actually create a stronger foundation within what that house lord represents. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. And sometimes even I have found with Purva Ashadha that with that particular area of the person's life, things are happening on a positive level because they're just being. Mm-hmm. They're behaving naturally, rather than behaving in a manner that they think they have to in order to attain success with that particular event.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, good. Well, any other thoughts on Purva Ashadha?
I think that's it.
Okay. Well, then we'll go ahead and conclude here for today, and we'll pick up on the next set of 4 nakshatras next time.
Excellent.
Okay. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
Okay.